morning. Welcome back to the K-Zone 105.3 FM and AM 1280 WPKZ. You're listening to the K-Zone Morning Commute. Travis and Bennett here. And right now, joining us on the phone, we have Tim Wasserman. Good morning, Tim. How are you?
Good morning, Travis. I'm doing fine, thank you.
Glad to have you calling us up this morning. You are you work for 28 Strategy Execution, and today you're here to talk to us about business trends for 2016.
Yes, indeed. We at 2080 Strategy Execution, we work with individuals as well as organizations, both locally and globally, around the whole area of work-based and workplace performance. A lot of what we focus on is that the recognition that the way most work gets done in organizations today is through project work and project-based teams. So, we look at trends constantly, and some of the leading trends that we're looking at as we move into 2016 have to do with just as the organizations continue to be flat and lean, there's a move towards a more need for agile business practices, not just agile development if you're in a software world, but in generally, how do you push decision-making out to the edges? And that has implications for organizations looking to be more innovative and flexible. And then if you compound the fact that the workforce demographics are constantly changing and more millennials are increasingly a large population of the workforce, it has pretty profound implications.
And I know, as individuals, we always look at the new year as kind of a chance to, change things up, maybe take a different approach to how we, live our lives. And it's something that business owners really need to take into account, too, is it's a great time to take stock and know that you can't just keep going along business as usual. You have to look at, what you can do better and how you can reinvent yourself. Now, I wanted to ask, what are some of the trends that are evolving in the current business environment?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, this move towards agile, just taking a more agile and innovative mindset, regardless of whether you're in a large global company like an Apple or a Cisco Systems, or whether you're in a startup or somewhere in between, really because technology is having such an impact on a daily basis, it's largely becoming more and more difficult to predict how that impacts your business. What we're finding is that leaders and even at a manager level need to become more flexible, more adaptable, if you will, and continually look to learn and grow in terms of their business practices.
So would you say that business owners now have to be a lot more fluid than past generations?
Absolutely. It's very difficult. The way the world is changing, while we can try and crystal ball a bit some changes, technology, the impact and the amount of data and information that we're all, it affords both an opportunity, but it also affords a real challenge. What do we do with the increased insight into our businesses? And so this ability to be more flexible, but it's a combination, I think. We think of it as there's the technical skills related to whatever type of business you're running and kind of running those areas. And then there's also the relational piece, which is increasingly important because, again, the nature of how work gets done is largely through teams these days.
Absolutely. And speaking to those teams, is that what you find that the most successful companies are really doing, is using that team strategy?
Yeah, it's using the team strategy, but it's recognizing the wisdom and the power of the individual combined in the reality that teams are coming together. What's different, I think, that's really significantly changing is that teams are coming together for shorter durations and then splitting up, and new teams are being formed. In many cases, people are being asked to participate on a variety of different teams. So both from a leader standpoint, but also from an individual standpoint, the ability to manage the expectations in each of those different engagements becomes critical to success, and that can be overwhelming, or the folks who are being successful at it are finding ways to do that more effectively.
And for business owners that are just starting to adapt this approach, do you have any tips for them on ways to craft these teams and what you should be looking for?
I think what's critical is it actually starts with kicking off the efforts with the team. Even as we work with some of our larger clients that are global in nature, and it's difficult when you may have people distributed geographically, it's critical initially for people to understand who their team members are as people and in terms of their working styles and the strengths that they bring to that particular team, as much as it is to have very clear initially planning and some of the issues around governance and how are we going to make decisions, roles and responsibility. Increasingly, as organizations are flatter, people are asked to do more. So this lack of role clarity can actually get in the way of team effectiveness. So, it is, I think, important to keep some of these things in mind and actually be very planful as you get started or bring new members into a team, too.
And now for business owners out there, how are millennials changing the way that their businesses are being managed and led?
A lot of people that are looking at millennials, and they have different views. Some are confused or confounded, which is actually a bit surprising to us, because really what we find in a lot of the data that's out there, and talking to and working with many millennials, really what is important to them is making connections, seeing meaning in the work that they're doing, understanding the big picture, if you will. What is our organization or the group that I'm working with responsible, and help me connect the dots so I can not only find meaning in the work that I'm doing, but also see the contribution and value that I may have a different way of thinking, a different way of viewing the way work is get done, and be open to creating the kind of environment where you're willing to consider changes. Millennials, some people look at millennials and talk negatively about entitlement, and they're connected through technology, and in fact those can be quite incorrect. In fact, technology, we're finding that most organizations that are successful are finding ways to bring technology into the way work gets done, because people want the right information. This issue of so much data that's out there, how do you get the right information to the fingertips at the right time? It so happens millennials have grown up thinking that way, learning that way, accessing information that way. They're used to being engaged in networks and sharing amongst their networks. When they need information, they go out and post a need that they have, and others participate in helping them find the answer. So there's actually some really powerful approaches that millennials are bringing to the workforce.
And it's all about, learning to use that to your advantage, as far as embrace these millennials and embrace that technology component that you could say they're almost born into at this point.
Absolutely. If people are interested in more information, they could go to www.strategyx, that's strategyex.com.